Hi everybody, it is time for us to work on our next self-assessment for the core competencies. So again, just like when we did communication, you need to find this sheet and it is going to be the thinking one. So in the thinking core competency, it includes creative thinking and innovation, as well as critical thinking. So creative thinking is generating new ideas, developing ideas, so coming up with things on your own. And then critical thinking is when we analyze and we critique things and we question things. So we wonder, like, why does the sun appear so big in the sky? We wonder these questions, we come up with them. That's our questions and our investigation skills. And are we able to develop and design something? So when we do our STEM bins, are you able to develop something and design it so that it works? When we did our leprechaun traps, were you able to develop and design those traps? That sort of idea. So I'm going to read you a book about critical and creative thinking. We'll talk a little bit more about it, and then we're going to fill in your own self-assessment for that one. So I'm going to read to you The Darkest Dark. It's by Chris Hadfield. If you don't know, Chris Hadfield is a Canadian astronaut, and he spent a lot of time up in space. I actually had the pleasure of meeting him, which was very cool, the year that he got back. So I'm going to read you this book. It starts off with just a picture. Chris, let me just move this a bit so we can see here. There we go. All right. Chris was an astronaut, an important and very busy astronaut. When it was time to take a bath, he told his mother, "I'd love to, but I'm saving the planet from aliens." When it was time to get out of the bath and go to bed, he told his father politely, because astronauts are always polite, "Sorry, no can do. I'm on my way to Mars." An astronaut's work is never done, so astronauts do not like to sleep. But their parents do. "You're a big boy now," said Chris's father. "You have to sleep in your own bed." And Chris tried, he really did, but his room was dark, very, very dark. The kind of dark that attracts the worst kinds of aliens. But his parents meant it. Chris was going to sleep in his own bed tonight. His mom and dad checked under his bed and in the closet and even in his underwear drawer. They declared the room 100% alien-free. They tucked Chris in, they turned on the nightlight, they even gave him a special bell to ring if he was feeling nervous. Clang, 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 clang. Clang, clang, clang. They took the bell away. And then his father said something that worried Chris, even more than the dark did. "One more peep, young man, and I'm afraid we'll all be too tired to go next door tomorrow." But tomorrow would be a special day, a very special day. Chris had to go next door. His life pretty much depended on it. So Chris stayed in his own bed without a peep. It took a long time to fall asleep. But when he did, he had his favorite dream. He flew his spaceship all the way to the moon. The next day seemed to last forever. But finally, when the moon was shining over the lake and the summer wind was ruffling the leaves of the trees, Chris ran next door. The house was already full of people, all gathered around the TV. The only TV on the whole island. Chris found a spot where he could see through the crowd, and what he saw was astronauts, real, live astronauts, on the actual far-away moon. They were wearing puffy white suits and jumping for joy, jumping so high because there was so much less gravity there. The grown-ups huddled around the TV. Their whole lives long, they'd never expected to see this sight. Even Chris, who had been to the moon just the night before, was amazed. He'd never really noticed how dark it was there. Outer space was the darkest dark ever. That night, Chris did a little experiment. He turned off all the lights in his room, even the night light. It was still dark, very, very dark. There were still shadows that looked a little, well, like aliens. Nothing had changed, but Chris had changed. He'd seen that the darkness of the universe was so much bigger and deeper than the darkness in his room. But he was not afraid. He wanted to explore every corner of the night sky. For the first time, Chris could see the power and mystery and of the black beauty of the dark. And he realized he never was really alone. Your dreams are always with you, just waiting. Big dreams about the kind of person you want to be. Wonderful dreams about the life you live. Dreams that can actually come true. The end. You might be thinking how this book is related to critical and creative thinking. But you can see that he was a very creative thinker at the beginning. He pretended he was an astronaut. He was able to, so he generated those ideas. He built himself a rocket ship. He was a very creative thinker, pretending he was chasing aliens around, pretending when he was in the bath that he's going to Mars. Those are all signs of creative thinking. And then, as the story went on, Chris ended up using some critical thinking. He took what he was afraid of in his life, which was being afraid of the darkness of his room, and he thought about the whole darkness of the universe. So he was analyzing and critiquing his own thoughts. And then he questioned. He thought, if I want to be an astronaut and the darkest dark is out in the universe, my room can't be that dark. So he questioned, is it worth being afraid of my room when it's not even that dark? And he was able to work through it, and he came out so much better at the end by using his creative and critical thinking. I know lots of us use our creative thinking all of the time in our class. I see it so much when we're doing our STEM projects and we're doing our writing. We're being so creative when we come up with stories and we come up with ideas. And in your poems, I've seen you be creative. And the critical thinking one is also in those projects. So when we're doing math and something is really hard and we have to think about how one part of math is related to another part of math, like in graphing, you'll see that we're going to do some graphing, but we're going to have to do some subtraction as well. and counting. So it's using all of those tools together and questioning them. Like when we were talking about space and we wondered, why does the sun rise? Why does the sun set? We asked those questions. So your job is to answer, I used my thinking skills at home too. So over the last 6 weeks or so, how did you use your critical thinking and your creative thinking at home? And you're going to write that in this box here. So how did you use your critical and creative thinking at home? I can't wait to read what you write. Remember, these pages have to come back to me because they go with your report cards. So fill that in. We've got one more to go after this, which is the personal and social, and then we will be all done. And I can't wait to see what you wrote. Awesome. I hope that you enjoyed that story. It's one of my favorites, and I'll see you in the next one.